Welcome. Welcome to Occam's Razor. My name is Jill, and this is Blazing Cat for Fridays, where we do a cold read through of the best news aggregate for an unobscured eye on current events. I'd like to thank BCF for posting these live streams and for his tireless commitment to publishing his site every day, coming up on 20 years in February. It's getting close. Please support his site. We are streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube. So please give us a like, thumbs up, follow, share, and subscribe. And most of all, the chat is up all across 3 platforms. So please feel free to ask anything. Comments drive the algorithm when I am not driving it down with forbidden words. This veteran appreciates your support. Also, please visit my other channels and share. There is a no answer period live stream at 10:30 after Blazing Cat Fur, a show that we usually do about 45 minutes before the house sits. So let's get into it. Unless, of course, I missed something. Let me double check my list here. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll keep doing this until the house stops showing up in the lower house. That'd be my other show. Okay. Straight to the show. Hey, there we go. Let's go straight to his site. I have not visited. This is a cold read through. And if anybody was tuning in earlier, um, just to make sure there's no issues with the live stream like I've been having for so often now, there'll be a bit of a intro live stream where we're playing around like we did for about 15 minutes prior to this show. Oh, it's very nice. Look at that, eh? Yeah, so first story up. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Breaking. MPD Police Chief O'Hara asks for forgiveness for exposing the reality of Somali criminal activity in Minneapolis. Oh, well, let's see what happens here. Make sure we got some.
hadda caruurteena inaan garab istaagno chiefkana waa u baahannahay annagana waa isku baahannahay
عشان oo kamid ah odayaasha community-ga Soomaaliyeed iyo waalidiinta magaaladan degan ilmana ku koriyay.
The Somali community here in Minneapolis has been welcoming and has shown love towards me, and I appreciate it. Over the last 3 years, we have been working together to try and address some of the real serious problems that we have in our community. We have to be honest at times with the problems that we're having in our community, and we need our community to help us fix those problems together because it's real and it's serious. At the same time, if people have taken anything that I have said out of context in a way that's caused harm, I apologize and I'm sorry for that because that's not my intention at all.
Okay. So I guess you don't have any more borders, language, or culture left in that area of the country because how come you got citizens there that can't speak your country's official language? That's what I'd like to know. BBC investigated by U.S. watchdog for misleading and deceptive Trump edit. Well, that was inevitable. I can't wait till they go after other government broadcasters like the Australian Broadcasting Corporation or perhaps even the Communist Broadcasting Corporation up here in Canada. The BBC is being investigated by the broadcast regulator in the U.S. over its misleading and deceptive conduct in editing a Donald Trump speech. Brendan Carr, the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, wrote to an executive at the BBC and to 2 American broadcasters on Wednesday to find out whether the report was aired in the U.S. He spells out how the Panorama program spliced together parts of a speech that were separated by 54 minutes. Yes, well, if I recall, I think CTV did something similar recently with Pierre Poilievre prior to the election, and CBC was caught doing the same thing, editing out parts of what Poilievre was saying that was disparaging about CBC, about how that they would not report exactly what they didn't report. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, the anti-brain mob hijacks Christmas. Of course they do. Every year, another increased attack on Christians. As family try to shop for the holidays with their children, this Toronto area mall is taken over by the same chant you often hear from terrorists before they murder innocent Christians and Jews. Merry Caliphate. Okay, so this country is just like falling apart, and all this stuff is being funded from somewhere. And it's it's bad enough that our government is Well, they're funding part of this. I look at what's happening on the Hill in Ottawa right now with this Palestinian Commission whatsoever. And what did Anita Anand today just announced another $300 million to towards the Palestinian cause. Yeah, let's just throw some more. Maybe it was more than that. But either way, like we're talking a chunk, a big chunk of percentage of a billion of our treasury just poof off to terrorists. So of course they're going to be chanting like this during Christmas because we have an anti-Christian government in Canada. Harpe, how Ottawa nudged a nation inside Canada's covert behavioral science campaign. Yes, they've been treating us like lab rats. We've been trying to warn you for years. And I know BCF on this site has been trying to warn people for 20 years. They're been doing this, slightly nudging people. Even today, just looking at a title of a story in the Globe and Mail regarding the recent committee um, testimony by Prime Minister Carney's screener of his ethics. Was that the headline says basically that he's doing a good job, right? And obviously, if you listen to the committee, he's not doing any job except ensuring that Carney's making a lot of money. So the federal government's Impact and Innovation Unit, the IIU, worked very hard to persuade Canadians to get injected with the COVID-19 vaccine in 2021. Modeled after the United Kingdom's Behavioral Insight Team, the IIU used social psychology and nudge theory to test public messaging and implement other public behavioral interventions. Yes, and this was never, ever more uh, implemented than in the Canadian Armed Forces, where we were subjected to constant propaganda by our senior commanders. And even in little town halls that they would try to hold with us, when we held them to account for their gaslighting, all they could do was repeat the ideological mantra, hoping to push us and nudge us. And when that didn't work, well, they fired us. The free speech documentary canceled by London Cinema. Think Before You Post, a Spike documentary. A London cinema banned a documentary about free speech because it does not align with our values and mission. Really? What values and mission would that be? Would that be the values and mission of cultural Marxism and communism? And only your values count and nobody else's? Ah, yes. The uh, the society where some are always more equal than others. Think Before You Post was due to play at Rich Mix in East London on November 25, following by a Q&A session with contributors before its producers were informed that the venue had decided against hosting the event. Tom Slater, the editor at Spike magazine, the libertarian publication behind the film, said he was sadly not surprised by the decision. That's right. And theaters are on their way out. They're dying. They're not helping themselves like this. This last little lurch of health that they might have left in the financial realm is to start engaging themselves with the public. Because right now, the public is constantly engaged right here on their phone, on their computer, nonstop, all the time. If you're not tapping into this or linking this to theater, I know they used to have a joke. They said it's only a matter of time before the theater screens go from this to this, the way people are watching and consuming media these days. So it would make more sense that you would have more and more independent producers coming into your local theaters. Bring them in, have a Q&A, have a show that lasts more than the actual movie, and people are actually using your confection, and you have a venue. And then people are like, hey, bring back the town halls of what they used to be. It's citizens are going to need a place to unite and to come together and to discuss things. And it's going to happen because we know the government is trying to shut down internet and media communications. It's only a matter of time before they shut us all down if they have their way. Report reveals how much Canadians paying for groceries thanks to food inflation. Sorry, let's read that again. Report reveals how much Canadians paying for groceries thanks to food inflation. I did read that right. Do you dream of groceries? I do all the time. I walk by the food aisle, I look at the very nice meats, and I think, oh, I'm glad I still have some in my freezer. Food inflation continues to top Canadians' financial concerns, according to the fall 2025 edition of the Canadian Food Sentiment Index by Dalhousie University's Agri-Food Analytics Lab, the AAL, and they're adapting their diets and shopping behaviors as a result. The AAL based the biannual report on Purdue University's Consumer Food Insights surveying of Americans. The Canadian Food Sentiment Index measures the perceptions and views of roughly 3,000 respondents across the country on issues ranging from food affordability and spending to consumer beliefs and trust. Well, all I can say is look for the discount bins for fruits and stuff. You know, if you got some fruits that are looking and they're looking a little old, I just say pick them up when they're in the discount bin for next to nothing. Don't eat the skin, just peel that off and then find a way to cook up that fruit. And you'd be pleasantly surprised at the nice little compote that you could have as a side dish or with your breakfast. And you know, and you look at where you're paying for something like that that's actually in their jar. Just little tips like that. Son of Barry and Honey Sherman moves to oust fellow estate trustees. Oh God, this story. The son of billionaire murder victims Barry and Honey Sherman has gone to court to remove his fellow trustees from control of part of his late parents' estate, citing breach of trust. In documents filed in Superior Court, Jonathan Sherman seeks to remove the two other trustees from control of the multimillion-dollar trust set up by his late father in 2016, the year before he was murdered. Jonathan states that his reasons are grounded in alleged breach of trust, breach of fiduciary duty, and failure to act in the best interest of the beneficiaries. We really need to find out who murdered this couple. This couple that were in charge of a pharmaceutical company that refused to go along with the rest of Big Pharma and then were murdered in a most horrific way. And then for some reason, our elite detectives in the area are stymied. Trump's transportation department necessarily brings back shaming. Thank God. The Trump administration's Department of Transportation has brought back shaming, and anyone who flies even just once per year should fully support it. Back in December 2021, aboard American Airlines to Cancun for a Christmas time family vacation, I asked the flight attendant if the airline had started serving alcohol again. No, he said, not until the passengers start acting right. That makes sense. It's their airplane. The captain is in charge. The captain is in charge. It's a lot of the. Let's do a little comparison. So in the armed forces, basically, when you have a commander uh, of a unit, let's say of a squadron or a regiment, they have complete control over the men under their command. They have powers of punishment under them as well, right? As a colonel, or lieutenant colonel, or a general, you know. But when you get up to that area, so but as also it turns out, if you're in command of a ship, right, you have those same responsibilities over your people, but you also have it as an aircraft pilot. When you're in command of an aircraft and you've got some souls on board, you have those same powers. Now, not to say that they have those same powers in the civilian airline, but you got to remember, once you're up in the air, who's in control of that plane? Pilot, and who's representing the pilot? The attendants and whoever else is working on that plane. And whose authority are they falling under? Some federal authorities with a lot of power. So if you think you can act up on in the air, but once that rubber hits the tarmac, you're gonna have to answer. So they're doing you a favor. They're doing you a favor. Just relax, relax, enjoy the flight. And if you can't relax without imbibing a little during the flight, maybe there's some other things you should be looking at in your life. Wokester woman, priests drive hundreds of Anglican clergymen to the Catholic Church, study says. I, hey, as a Catholic, I've always thought the argument about women priests was a waste of time. There aren't going to be any. Given Catholic Church doctrine, well, you know, we did have a woman pope in the past, and I'm sure there's been some other priests that were uh, women, but you know, anyways, the Vatican is lately stringing the wokester women of the church along on maybe deacons, but that's settled too. The answer will be no. It's hardly something to get upset about. Being a priest is just a role, and it doesn't give anyone an express route to heaven if they don't behave. Why fuss about different roles playing and insisting insist on changing tradition, which dates back to the apostles when the idea is just to get to heaven. And we all just get along. And why can't you just leave your churches alone? There's a reason why there was traditions, morals, and ethics set up. And then as soon as you start changing them, it's you don't have the same church anymore. Pretty sure there's been some warnings about that, about falling for the current fashions of the day to replace your long-held ideological beliefs. It's one of the things that drives cultural Marxism, is they get you to forget history. From Caledon to Mecca and the Medellin, U.S. says Toronto cocaine lawyer used encrypted chats inside weddings, murder conspiracies. Ah, yes, our snowboarding international criminal overlord, Mr. Wedding, on the path to becoming the first Canadian of genuine Latin American cartel stature, a man the FBI has likened to a modern day iteration of Pablo Escobar. Ryan Wedding did not simply exploit Canada's borders, ports, and highways to move cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl. Prosecutors say he became the single largest cocaine importer into Canada, building a billion-dollar enterprise by mastering cryptocurrency, money laundering, legal strategy, paramilitary training, and the kind of hardened operational security usually associated with state intelligence agencies. Well, a liberal declares Cooper's research in an earlier piece unfounded. Ah! Yes, I did. I tagged this earlier today. Good on you, BCF. The contents of this post relating to the relationship between the RCMP, FBI, DA are both fabricated and false. I'm pretty sure Kevin M. Vickers was the guy that took down the terrorist by drawing a sidearm in the lower house when somehow they managed to run rampant with a rifle and got into Parliament. Probably one of the reasons why they've cordoned off the area more. It's harder to get in, and why you have parliamentary security that answers to the Speaker of the House constantly walking around and intimidating people they think they need to intimidate. So, of course, this guy, I don't know if he's read any of Sam Cooper's work, if he's read his stories, if he's read his books, or if he has listened to the proliferate amount of interviews that Sam has done. He's got all his links in a row, and he's been working with U.S. intelligence. They've been referring to him as well. I think he knows what he's talking about. Here's Sam Cooper saying at the Washington News Conference, Royal Canadian Mounted Police Commissioner Mike Duham emphasized the role of cross-border cooperation, saying international cooperation such as our involvement in Operation Giant Slalom is vital to our ability to stay ahead of organized crime. Yes, so a recap. What has the Liberal government done since they got elected 28th of April, 2025, to respond to the security threat that the U.S. has been telling Canada since Trump got elected last year, even before he came into office? And as soon as he came into office in February, it's like, Canada, get your borders straightened out. They're porous. You've got cartels running rampant in your country. So what did Canada do? Nothing. Nothing. No, they promised to train another 1,000 CBSA agents. For some reason, the existing training facilities didn't exist. So they had to go and, I think it was Superwash, had to go in there and reopen up an old Canadian Armed Forces training facility to start training them. And now apparently they're going to start training them. And it was the same thing with the RCMP to increase their ability. It goes, oh, we got to get another 1,000. So let's put some funding in for that. Meanwhile, keeping the fact from the public that the RCMP has had the same recruiting problem as the Canadian Armed Forces. I think they're down 10%. So it's not like they need more funding. They can't even fund the existing holes that they can't fill in their training facility that is in Ottawa, by the way, down on St. Laurent Boulevard before you get down to the Bayfield Mall. And not the Bayfield Mall, the St. Laurent Mall, if you're driving down that area. Anyways. Punishable by death. Trump notes execution is traditional penalty for sedition. Well, it is. I mean, it's the states. President Donald Trump on social media has pointed out that the penalty for the refusal of military troops to obey orders is serious. Punishment up to and including execution. Well, let's not forget, this was the same. We had Canadian soldiers executed in World War I. Now, of course, our laws in Commonwealth progressed and improved, but it's still on the books. If you're in war, what are they going to do if you're not following orders? The response from the president came after a list of Democrats made a video urging federal employees, including members of the military, to refuse to obey what they called, without a definition, illegal orders. Well, of course, they'd be arrested first. Holy crap, Carolyn Levitt just went nuclear on the Democrat officials who called the U.S. service members to defy Trump's orders. You have sitting members of the United States Congress who conspire together to orchestrate a video message to members of the United States. Let's see without opening up a new window.
This morning, President Trump accused 6 Democratic lawmakers of seditious behavior punishable by death. Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. Let's be clear about what the president is responding to, because many in this room want to talk about the president's response, but not what brought the president to responding in this way. You have sitting members of the United States Congress who conspired together to orchestrate a video message to members of the United States military, to active duty service members, to members of the national security apparatus, encouraging them to defy the president's lawful orders. The sanctity of our military rests on the chain of command. And if that chain of command is broken, it can lead to people getting killed. It can lead to chaos. And that's what these members of Congress who swore an oath to abide by the Constitution are essentially encouraging. We have 1.3 active duty service members in this country. And if they hear this radical message from sitting members of Congress, that could inspire chaos, and it could incite violence, and it certainly could disrupt the chain of command. These 3 members of Congress, I will also add, knew exactly what they were doing. You look at Alyssa Slotkin. She's a former member of the CIA. Mark Kelly was a captain in the U.S. Navy. Maggie Goodlander was a naval officer, and notably, she is also the wife of Joe Biden's national security former advisor, Jake Sullivan. And so these members knew what they were doing. They were leading into their credentials as former members of our military, as veterans, as former members of the national security apparatus to signal to people serving under this commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, that you can defy him and you can betray your oath of office. That is a very, very dangerous message, and it perhaps is punishable by law. I'm not a lawyer. I'll leave that to the Department of Justice and the Department of War to decide.
Well, FOFA, or is it the other way around? FAFO? Don't mess with the big guy. Jobs Americans won't do, the lie that broke a nation, and the economic and social devastation it hid. Charlotte New NC, I'm not good with my American short forms for their states, is making headlines this week because dozens of construction sites have gone silent. Ice swept through the region, and a labor force evaporated almost instantly. A major American city discovered in real time that its building boom was being held together by workers who couldn't legally be there. Watching that footage hit me hard because I've seen it before. Not on the evening news, but in the slow collapse of my own childhood community. Wow. Well, I guess it's not like there isn't a lot of jobs. Now, of course, these companies that were hiring illegals to do the jobs, they're obviously paying them a lower wage. Now, when they go to replace these workers with Americans, it means they're going to have to pay them a higher wage. So what will happen then? Percam. One man's land is another man's great-great-great-grandfather's fishing village. So what? Cowichan followed a decision by the Supreme Court of Canada in 1997. Oh, BCCF are doing this to me on purpose, put these hard words up. All right. Del Megacook, which held that in absence of a treaty ceding their lands, any band is entitled to Aboriginal title over any area to which they can prove their ancestors had exclusive possession in 1846. In 1846. Before 1867, before the country was formed. Wonderful. Okay. And the court decided that to assist bans in proving the fact of possession in 1846, the ban could introduce seventh generation hearsay evidence passed down through generations as to what land was occupied in 1846. This reversed a common law prohibition against first time hand hearsay evidence that applies in every other lawsuit that goes before the courts. Our land rights are being destroyed in Canada. I wouldn't want to be living in BC right now. And I know on the nap, I think it was maybe a couple of weeks ago, I covered there's this massive map that shows all the treaty areas in Canada. It's of course it's maintained by people that are funded by the government, and it shows you can just look up your address in your area, and then you can find out if where you're living, if it's a treaty that has been ratified, or if it's still open to interpretation. Now we've seen what happened in BC, right? People can't get mortgages. The entire far left coast is sliding into the water of irrelevancy. Serbia's current president is accused of involvement in Sarajevo's human safaris, where foreign tourists pay to be snipers and kill civilians. What? The scandal surrounding an alleged human safaris during the siege of Sarajevo has escalated with the fresh allegation that Serbia's current president participated in the hunting trips of unarmed civilians. Alexander Vujic, who took the office in 2017, has been accused of taking part in grotesque expeditions where the wealthy foreign tourists would shoot at people with snipers during the 4-year Bosnian Serb siege of the city in the 1990s. Between 1992 and 1996, more than 10,000 people were killed in Sarajevo by shelling, sniper fire in the longest siege of a capital city in the history of modern warfare. Wow. Now, BCF here says the kind of story you want to see debunked. Yeah, yeah. It'll be interesting to see where the evidence is. And having personally been in Bosnia Herzegovina, served there, went there on 3 tours. I can tell you that the people there, you could see the trauma firsthand of people trying to bring their lives back, being in a war-torn area. We were out for dinner. One of those few times we're allowed to leave the camp. Of course, one of us always has to be armed, and we're sitting in a restaurant. And of course, they have limited stuff that they could actually service. I remember ordering the only salad they had available was a plate of pickles, which we were enjoying when we heard an explosion off in the distance. And our waiter, you could see the expression on his face change right away, like half fear, half, oh, I hope my customers don't leave. Half is like, is this and waiting for the next one, but there was only the one, so it was like, oh, okay, it's just a normal day, not a bad day, and it's just insane. A lot of people don't realize, and of course, this is in my living memory, but we have a lot of young adults today that this isn't in their living memory. It was a bad time. This is what happens when you have a socialist state that for 3 generations tried to get everybody under the same communist ideology by the state providing everything for them. And it held together under fear simply by telling the Christians, the Muslims, and the who was there? The Croats, the Serbians, and the oh, I forget now. But anyways, he told them all, stop killing each other because if you commit any crimes, I'm just going to go in and murder your entire family. And it worked. Yeah, the peace was held through constant terror. And then once Tito died, the country fell apart, and they ran out of money because everybody was promised everything. And then, of course, everything disintegrated, and it went back to the same old hatreds, trying to get back their same old lands. And if you don't believe me, just look up Chipper Lake. Right. Well, this comes us to the end of the show. We really appreciate all of you who've been here. Please join us on the nap at 10:30, and we will be here next week at 9 o'clock, same bad time, same bad place. Of course, we will be streaming at least 15 minutes earlier to make sure the stream is working fine. So you might find some goodies being played upon there. So until then, adios. See you next week. Thanks for coming out. Bye bye.